Magician Recaps explains here. Today, we are recapping the latest 2024 movie, The Painter. Let's start right away. Peter Barrett, a CIA covert operative, is approached at a dinner by a man in disguise. As everything seemed intense and serious, the man has turned out to be Peter's CIA superior and adopted father, Henry Byrne. Byrne adopted Peter after his parents, who were close with Byrne, were killed in a terrorist attack, making him temporarily lost his hearing. Later on, Peter's hearing returned, though now ultrasensitive, giving him ultrasonic hearing. He gives him a mission, and the mission is to track a Russian arms dealer or drug smuggler, download the contents of his watch, and then eliminate them. After Byrne leaves, Peter calls his pregnant wife, Elena Marin, who is also a CIA agent. The mission starts well with Peter easily capturing the target, downloading the contents, and wiping out the target's bodyguards. Once the download is complete, which the target had to be alive for, Peter goes to kill the target but is stopped by Elena and two other agents. The target has been the subject of a year-long investigation, and Elena's team needs him to stand trial. Peter hesitates on what to do, and the target grabs a gun and fires at Peter. Peter is grazed by the bullet but shoots and kills the target. Elena, however, is hit directly in the stomach. Elena survives but loses the baby and eventually breaks up with Peter. Peter's relationship with Byrne also falls apart, as Peter blames Byrne for ordering the mission, knowing fully Elena could show up, though Byrne denies knowing that her team was involved. Time passed and it's 17 years now. Elena is still working for the CIA, while Peter is now living a life of solitude as a painter in the mountains in Cascade, Oregon. Elena receives incriminating evidence about the CIA from her colleague, Dennis, shortly before he is killed by an assassin looking for the evidence. Peter, now going by the fake name, Mark Nicholson, receives a package addressed to Peter Barrett. The package contains 2 art books with an inscription from Elena, something she used to do when they were married, as he'd always drip paint on the books. He later visits a bar run by his friend Lucy. While there, Peter is approached by a teenage girl, Sophia, who addresses him as Peter. Sophia is Elena's daughter, and says her mom told her to find Peter Barrett if anything ever happened to her. Elena is now missing, and Sophia found Peter hoping he would help find her. Before we get on with it, like the video, smash that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to join our magical movie family. Peter denies that he is Peter, or that he knows Sophia's mother. Peter later goes to the house, not knowing Sophie also follows him home, and eventually gets him to admit his identity, after discovering a painting of her mom. She confronts Peter and claims she is his daughter too, but the house is then attacked by mercenaries. Peter senses them, and tells her to go upstairs. He strategically eliminates all of them, with Sophia nervously killing the last attacker. She starts crying, but Peter tells her she did the right thing, as she killed the killer to protect him. Peter found out that they are CIA. They flee the house with Peter grabbing a few belongings, including one of the art books that Elena had sent. Naomi Piasecki, section chief for the CIA, watches body cam footage of Peter's attack. She calls an Agent Kim, and orders a manhunt to be put on for Peter, whom she accuses of going rogue and murdering 8 federal agents, who were there to investigate him for possession of classified information. Piasecki and Kim deliver the news to Byrne, now a high-ranking CIA official. He is furious and accuses the CIA of using Piasecki to cover up old messes. Piasecki tells Kim to put a tail and track on Byrne, believing he is hiding something. Peter and Sophia find Niles, the owner of a computer hardware and software store, and asks him to hack into the CIA network and determine why he was attacked. Niles at first refuses, knowing how to, but after Peter shows him his gun, Niles agrees to help. He finds that Peter's record is now classified and Elena is claimed to have went dark on a mission. Peter calls Byrne, who tells Peter that 2 agents came to his house asking about him. Peter agrees to meet with Byrne in secret, believing Byrne is the best chance to find Elena. Agent Kim is able to trace Niles' hacking to Cascade, Oregon, and sends a team to retrieve him. Sophia once again confronts Peter about him lying, and though he feels guilt about lying, he still denies being her father. Meanwhile, eccentric CIA assassin, Ghost, who had previously killed Elena's colleague Dennis, arrives in Cascade and goes through Peter's apartment, tracking him to Lucy's bar. Peter meets with Byrne, demanding to know why the CIA tried to kill him. Byrne says he doesn't know, but has pieced together that Piasecki believes Peter is in possession of something that greatly threatens national security. When asked about Sophia's identity, Byrne also rejects the possibility that Peter and Elena are the parents. Ghost then attacks Lucy at the bar and demands to know where Peter went, though she denies knowing Peter. Somewhere in the village, Peter takes Byrne to meet Sophia, and he begins aggressively questioning her at gunpoint. However, Sophia easily answers all of Byrne's questions, and he agrees to call in a check on Elena's status, which reveals that Elena was killed in service. Sophia maintains that Elena had to have sent her to Peter for a reason, but Peter once again confirms he hasn't had any contact with Elena for years. He promises Sophia that he is going to find out what happened to Elena and take care of whoever did it. Peter examines the art books that she sent and finds a small flash drive inside the spine. He leaves Sophia with Byrne and heads out. Piasecki and Kim arrive in Cascade, and Kim reveals that Byrne is nowhere to be found. Peter takes the flash drive to Niles, who Byrne confirmed Peter's suspicion of being a CIA operative sent to keep an eye on Peter for decryption. The files all pertain to a CIA Black Ops program called the Internship. Peter hears Ghost approaching, and he takes cover with Niles. Ghost uses a high-pitched whistle to incapacitate Peter, but he still escapes the store with the flash drive. Ghost questions Niles for information, though it is clear that Ghost knows about the internship, and then kills him. Peter goes to Lucy's bar and finds her beaten to death. He reviews the files and finds a video from Elena. Elena explains that the internship was a program run by the CIA that stole young children to train them to become the perfect assassins. Dennis, Elena's colleague, was attempting to remove an asset from the program when he was killed. Elena also confirms that Sophia is their daughter, telling Peter that she doesn't know how but she's alive. The video breaks out after Elena tells Peter he must protect her, and that Sophia is in danger. Peter races back to Byrne and Sophia but finds that Piasecki's CIA operatives have already arrived. He is attacked and kills 2 guards before Sophia is dragged into the back of a van and driven away, as Peter and Byrne fire at the car. Byrne tells Peter to go follow the van, and he'll be able to hide himself. Byrne is intercepted by more operatives, and Piasecki orders them to eliminate Peter over the objections of Agent Kim. The agents open fire on his truck, blowing it up, but not before Peter is able to escape. Peter, who is barely conscious from his wounds, is found that night by Junk Man, a French homeless man who is often found around Cascade. Agent Kim reveals to Piasecki that they have found no evidence of Peter, and Piasecki orders them to end the search. The Junk Man is later revealed to be Byrne in disguise, who has taken Peter to a secret bunker for recovery. Piasecki and Kim interrogate Sophia, who reveals that she is Elena and Peter's daughter, accusing Piasecki of killing her mother. Piasecki denies that the CIA wants to kill Peter or had anything to do with Elena, and then threatens her for more information. She orders everyone, including Agent Kim, out of the room. Peter and Byrne review the files that show that Piasecki is running the internship program, which temporarily dulls certain senses to hope they recover like Peter's did, creating the ultimate assassin team. However, before they can continue looking through the files, it receives a virus and self-destructs. Peter remembers that Elena sent 2 books, and likely put a second copy in the other book. Byrne wants to go get it, but Peter refuses, owing it to Elena to find Sophia first. He uses a tracker he had given her earlier to locate her, taking some weapons from the stockpile that Byrne had. Agent Kim criticizes Piasecki for breaking protocol with the interrogation, and threatens to report her. Piasecki claims she'll report herself after the threat is neutralized, and reveals a tracker she found on Sophia, something Kim missed in her previous search. Piasecki warns that Peter is coming and to prepare for an attack. Agent Kim orders the agents to various defensive positions, but Peter easily infiltrates the facility, killing multiple agents. Peter reaches the control room and fights off the agents. Kim leaves Piasecki to help get Sophia to safety. Piasecki intercepts them, bringing them to a different part of the facility. She orders Agent Kim to leave them, but when Kim refuses, she is shot and killed by Piasecki. Peter is attacked by Ghost, who reveals himself to be an alum of the internship. Ghost wants to be the one who kills Peter, whom he refers to as Patient Zero. Peter tries to break through to Ghost and get him to escape from the CIA, but Ghost mocks him and attacks again. Ghost nearly beats Peter, but after revealing that he killed Elena, he infuriates Peter, who grabs a wood shard and stabs Ghost through the eye, killing him. Peter finds Piasecki, and the two fire at each other, with Piasecki revealed to have heightened senses as well. She explains that she was an intern who now leads the program. Sophia arrives with 2 CIA guards. Piasecki orders Peter to put his weapon down and hand over the flash drive. However, Byrne arrives, killing the two guards and forcing Piasecki to put her gun down. Peter turns his gun on Byrne, accusing him of starting the internship and being Piasecki's superior, which Byrne admits to. Byrne apologizes for involving Peter, saying they only wanted to find the information. Peter claims Byrne is only trying to save his legacy, but he claims Sophia is his new legacy, and hands her a gun which she points at Peter. Sophia orders Peter to hand over the flash drive, but he refuses, and she shoots him in the arm. Byrne claims she is the new perfect weapon, kidnapping her after she was born and pronounced dead. Peter tries to get through to Sophia, telling her that Byrne kidnapped her, and after Elena was sent the files and discovered the truth, she confronted Byrne, and he had her killed by Ghost. He begs her to decide for herself and not be controlled by Byrne. He tells her how much he loved her mother, and her mother loved her, while Byrne orders her to kill Peter. She turns the gun, killing Byrne and wounding Piasecki. Sophia still expresses admiration for Byrne, but tells Peter he was thinking too small. She warns Peter she is coming for the flash drive, and likely won't remember he is her father, but she and Peter have a small farewell. Peter returns home, and finds the other copy. He opens the files, and finds the video that cut off earlier. Elena confirms his theories about Byrne, and tells him he must help all of the interns. He smiles as he hears a sniper zoning in, and sees Sophia with it, smiling. And there you have it, the Painter movie. Welcome to Magician Recaps Explains. Today we are recapping American action comedy movie, Freelance. Let's start right away. The movie begins with the introduction of our main guy, Mason Petitz, as he narrates that while growing up he struggled to find any sense of purpose or meaning in life. While in college, he enrolled in law school, but it soon got boring, and he dropped out. After that he joined the U.S. Army, and it was the first time he found his purpose and felt truly alive. During this period, he also got married to Jenny, and they had a daughter. On one faithful day, Mason and his team are ordered to go to a country called Polonia to take down the dictator president, Juan Venegas, and unfortunately, their mission takes a tragic turn when their helicopter is struck by a missile, causing most of his teammates to die, though Mason survives, but he suffers permanent back damage. After this incident, Mason is let go from the army, and has to go back to regular life. With no other choice, he completes law school, and starts working as a lawyer. Once again, he loses his sense of purpose, and it starts affecting his personal life, and his marriage. Mason seems frustrated in his office when his former army general, Sebastian, arrives. After exchanging pleasantries, and happy to see each other after a long time, Sebastian claims that he has something important to discuss. He then takes Mason to his office where he reveals that he has started his own private security agency called CDI, and that he wants Mason to join him. He explains that a female American reporter is going to Polonia to interview President Venegas, and Mason needs to accompany her for protection. Hearing this, Mason immediately refuses the offer, because Venegas is responsible for the deaths of his teammates and the end of his military career. After all that, he doesn't understand why Sebastian would work for such a guy. Sebastian offers him $20,000 and claims that he knows how miserable Mason is in his lawyer job. Mason says that he's not as strong as he once was, and that his back is permanently injured. Still, Sebastian continues to insist, and in the end Mason unwillingly agrees to take the job. Mason then makes inquiries about the female reporter whose name is Claire Wellington. She used to be a famous journalist, but a professional error in the past led her out of the spotlight. Since then she has had a tough time finding serious work, and now she finally has the chance to interview a high-profile politician. That evening, Mason and Jenny get into argument when they find out that their daughter followed her father's advice and hit someone at school. Before we get on with it, like the video, smash that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to join our magical movie family. Jenny is distraught and feels that she can no longer be with Mason, because he's unhappy with him. She claims she'll move in with her parents, but Mason stops her and says he'll leave instead. He then reveals that he's going to work as a security guard, which upsets her even more. However, she eventually lets him go, thinking it might help him move on from his issues and fix their failing marriage. The next day, Mason picks up Claire, and they fly to Polonia together. On the way, Mason watches some troll videos of Claire, and she notices. She asks if he's making fun of her, but he assures her that's not the case. She then says that regardless of what happened in the past, she intends to fix her reputation now. She reveals that Venegas hasn't given any media interviews in the last 10 years. However, he has now personally invited her for an interview, so it's a big deal for her career. Soon after, they arrive in Polonia, where they are greeted by President Venegas. He tells Claire that she's even more beautiful in person, and kisses her hand. They then get into a car and head for the capital. Claire introduces Mason to Venegas, who says that he's already done his research and knows that Mason is a former army officer. After this awkward moment, Claire and Venegas continue chatting and having drinks, completely ignoring Mason. A while later, they are suddenly attacked by some mercenaries, so Mason takes control of the car and sends Venegas and Claire to the back seat. He retaliates by shooting at the attackers, and he ends up crashing their car after taking out everyone. Mason limps out of the car, and Venegas and Claire are shocked by his combat skills. Venegas continues to praise him, but Mason is irritated and says that he and Claire are leaving right now. Claire says that she needs to conduct the interview first, because this is a huge opportunity for her, but Mason says that her life is more important than her career, and suggests they leave. Following this, the three of them enter the forest, and Mason contacts Sebastian to let him know what happened when he reveals that he killed all those attackers alone, and Sebastian is shocked. Mason explains that they're stranded in the forest and need a way out, so Sebastian assures him that they will send a helicopter with his men to pick them up. Soon after this, Venegas asks for the phone, and he calls his nephew, George, who is terrified to learn that his uncle is still alive because he was the one who sent the mercenaries. Venegas then tells his nephew that they were attacked, and he is now stranded in the woods. After hanging up, Venegas informs him that he knows his nephew, George, is behind all of this, but knows that George is just a pawn following someone else's orders. Later on, Venegas suggests they should head for the capital. However, Mason says that a helicopter is on its way to pick them up, and they'll be leaving soon. He then takes Claire with him, leaving Venegas behind. On the way, Claire asks Mason to let her conduct the interview first, but he refuses to listen. Shortly after, they see a helicopter coming, and feel relieved, thinking they can finally go home, but to their shock, a few armed mercenaries come out of the chopper shooting at them. Mason and Claire run into the forest with the mercenaries chasing them. Mason manages to take down most of the attackers and even shoots down the helicopter. However, one of the mercenaries catches up to him and brutally beats him. He nearly ends up killing Mason, but surprisingly, Venegas shows up, and he shoots the guy. After a while, George and his men show up, and he's upset to see the helicopter's condition. Just then, the leader of the mercenary, Colonel Jan Kohorst, arrives and scolds George for not being able to kill his uncle. George explains that his mercenaries also failed in their task, but Kohorst gets angry and threatens to kill him if he fails again. Meanwhile, Venegas takes Mason and Claire to his hometown, where the locals admire him. After some time, Claire sits down with Venegas for an interview, while Mason records their conversation. She mentions the attack earlier, and asks why these mercenaries are after him. Venegas explains that Polonia has a lot of the rare mineral, which is necessary for creating phones, laptops, and other modern tech. A large number of Western companies want to mine it in Polonia, but this harms the soil and local environment. If foreign businesses extract and sell the minerals, it will cause big financial losses. So he is preventing all foreign corporations from establishing themselves in Polonia, making him an enemy of powerful people, and because of this, he is facing attacks from mercenaries and militants paid by external forces. That night, Claire, Mason, and Venegas enjoy a good time partying with the locals. Later, Claire approaches Mason and tries to seduce him. However, he politely refuses, and tells her that he loves his wife, and can't do this to her, and she leaves. The next day, as they get ready to leave, Mason calls Sebastian, and questions why he chose him for the mission. He doesn't understand why the mercenaries from the helicopter were after them. So Sebastian confesses that he actually sent Mason to kill Venegas as revenge for killing their teammates. He reveals that he's received orders from highly influential people to get rid of Venegas. Those mercenaries were not supposed to attack them, but they were only after Venegas. After this, Mason calls his home, and his daughter answers the phone. She tells him that she misses him, and her mother is very upset. Mason then talks to Jenny, who is relieved to hear his voice. She apologizes for what happened earlier and asks him to return home safely. Mason then approaches Venegas and Claire, and suggests they should leave immediately. However, before they can escape, Cohorst arrives with his men and starts terrorizing the village. So Mason gets on a horse with Venegas and rides away. Claire also climbs on a horse and begins rushing, but soon she falls and is captured by Cohort. Seeing this, Mason is worried, but Venegas assures him that they won't harm her, as long as he's alive. Later on, Mason and Venegas reach a town and decide to spend the night, and shares with Mason that he wasn't the one who shot down the helicopter that killed his teammates during the American invasion. He reveals during the invasion, he had lost hope and was planning to escape through underground tunnels. Polonia army couldn't track him and shoot down American choppers, so he believes that it was friendly fire. Mason then informs him that he was sent here to kill him, and Venegas claims he already knows. The following day, Cohorst and his troops arrive in the town as well, so Mason comes up with a plan to save Claire by offering Venegas an exchange. He appears in front of Cohorst seemingly ready to surrender. However, the scenario shifts when thousands of locals arrive in the streets to protect him, because the private army has only been contracted to murder him. They cannot open fire on innocent citizens, as this will put them in serious trouble, and during the chaos, Venegas, Mason, and Claire head to an underground tunnel and sneak into the palace. In the president's office, they find George sitting alone, who is scared to see his uncle. Claire begins live streaming from her phone, and Venegas tells his nephew not to be afraid of him, and that they will protect the nation together. Hearing this, George realizes his mistake, so he tearfully hugs and apologizes to his uncle. Moments later, one of the generals enters, and he immediately shoots Venegas. George gets angry and shoots the general, who fires back repeatedly. Within a few seconds, both George and the general die in the gunfire. However, Venegas survives, as it turns out he was wearing a bulletproof suit. He is devastated by his nephew's death, but he is soon surrendered by many soldiers, all pointing guns at him. But he assures them that he is their president, not their enemy. He tells them this is their nation, and they are not terrorists but soldiers fighting to protect it. Suddenly Cohorst arrives with his men, but the soldiers turn towards him and start attacking the mercenaries to protect their president. Meanwhile, Sebastian also arrives to help in Polonia with his troops to help Mason. A shootout follows, and Claire continues to live stream everything on her phone. Soon after, Cohorst approaches Mason and starts beating him. He claims that he was the one who shot down his helicopter and killed his teammates. This enrages Mason, and the two begin brutally attacking each other. After an intense struggle, he overpowers Mason and is about to kill him. Just then, Claire attacks Cohorst's head, which brutally injures him. Since the other mercenaries are still after them, Mason takes a huge gun and shoots them all, while Claire records it on her phone. After this incident, Claire's courageous footage is featured in news reports all over the world. In a press conference, President Venegas steps down from his dictatorship and announces a public election for the following year. Later on, Mason returns to the US and reunites with his family. He apologizes to Jenny and says that he wants to fix their marriage. Mason checks his account balance and discovers that Venegas sent him $5 million as a reward for helping him. With this, Mason finds a new purpose in life, which is to spend more time with his family. That is all for this. Welcome to Magician Recaps Explains. The movie begins with a bad guy named Radek meets a German reporter, Greta, secretly to talk about some classified CIA files. The files and photos are shown to Greta, and she seems excited to be able to tell the world about the CIA cover-up. Suddenly, Radek pulls out his gun while she takes pictures with her phone. Greta asks Radek why he would betray her, yet he shoots her. Later on, there are protests all over the city when false information spreads that the CIA is killing reporters. Not knowing this is the third murder of this kind in Greece in just a month. CIA worker, Kate, on the other hand, is looking into why these people were killed. Late that night, Kate is still watching a videotape by herself in the office when she sees someone who turns out to be Radek. She quickly runs over to her boss, Tim, who is also shocked to see Radek, who had been dead for more than 18 months. Tim checks to see if Kate has shown anyone else, before telling Handler that Radek was a secret CIA agent who was working with both the Greek and Russian mafias. There was a famous CIA agent called Steve at that time. He was now retired and working as a common Spartan bricklayer. Somewhere in the city, Steve goes to work on a building site, and then to the roof to fix an old wall. He goes to get lunch and runs into Kate and Tim. Actually, he doesn't like seeing them. He hears about the CIA being blackmailed and the bodies that have been found, and blame Radek for the murder. Steve doesn't believe this, because he knows Radek is dangerous, but not so dangerous that he would kill other people. Besides, he also saw Radek die. Yet still, Radek's picture was found at Greta's crime scene, proving that it is him. Tim is scared about everything happening and wants Steve and Kate to go to Greece to stop him. Tim is adamant because they are the only ones who know about Radek, but Steve tells him to clean up his mess and won't do it. He then returns to the roof to finish his work, and thinks about how close he was to Radek's family. At that moment, suddenly Steve is shot, and he quickly hides as more shots are fired. He puts a bandage on his wound, and then rappels down to another rooftop, where two shooters appear. Yet Steve sneaks up on them and takes one. He slams into the other shooter, and takes away his gun. The two of them start fighting, and one of them grabs a steel bar. The man tries to stab Steve again, but Steve blocks his blows and throws him. Steve beats the man up though, and then ties his throat shut with his tape measure, and gets out of the lift just before it falls to the ground, blowing up. Before we get on with it, like the video, smash that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to join our magical movie family. Steve then agrees to go on the task, and he and Kate meet up to get on their flight. In the evening, Kate looks over the plan again, and discovers pictures of Rick's brutality. Not long after, they land in Greece and go to a CIA black site to get a car. When they get to the building, he runs into an old friend, Patricio, who used to work with Steve. Kate doesn't like that the plan was changed for her. They are given weapons by Patricio, who gives them new identities. Kate is meant to be Steve's wife. They leave, and get to Greece the next day, checking into a fancy hotel room. Steve tells Kate to shower, but Steve isn't in the room when she returns. Steve later sneaks into a fancy party and meets up with Ty, an old CIA coworker, until she finds out that Tim sent him. She tells him that the agency is still looking for him. He asks about a friend from their college days, and discovers that the person is now running a club. Steve goes straight there, where he meets their own, Steph, and immediately asks where Radek is. Steve knows Radek is still alive even though Steph tells him Radek is dead. He then shows Steve his men, who are waiting. Steph tells Steve to sit and drink, but Steve hits the guard with the glass. Steve swoops down on the guys and goes through them without getting hit. He then starts shooting to make a scene. Steph's men are shooting at him as he runs away, but Kate suddenly appears and saves him. Steve tells her he found Kate's bug. After she yells at him for leaving her behind during the chaos, he puts it on Steph to help him find Radek. Kate didn't go any further until Steve tells her what happened with Radek. Steve finally agrees that the fact that his family was killed in Radek's last hit made him lose it, and he began to blame the CIA. He started a plan to get back at them, and Steve was told to kill him. Right then, the CIA gets a video message from a radio station demanding $100 million, or the person inside will give out information about the CIA. Steve and Kate find Steph and go to his house. After he goes, they break in to see if they can find any clues that lead them to Radek. Kate looks through his files and notebook. At the same time, Steve finds some sloppy brickwork on a column and uses his tools to uncover a secret space. There, they find Greta's cell phone and clues about who Radek will go after next. They hear the doors open and quickly hide before a guard comes in. When the man hears a sneeze, he pulls out his gun, but Steve strikes him from behind. The man is too strong though, and throws Steve. He takes off his belt and starts to choke Steve. Steve grabs his trowel and stabs the man in the neck, killing him. Steve then gets a text message from Patricio telling him where the next target is. When they get to the small town, they wait outside a coffee shop to see the target, who is drinking coffee. Patricio is also nearby, sitting down. Steve wants to use the man as bait. Radek calls Steve at that very moment. Then it comes out that Steve couldn't bring himself to kill Radek, so he let him go with him and agreed never to come back. Radek tells him that someone leaked his secret to the Russians, which killed his family, and he firmly thinks it's the CIA. Steve looks through the crowd and sees a well-dressed guy. He starts to follow him. Steve tries to talk him out of his grudge, but Radek tells him to stay away. Steve meets up with the man, but it's not on the phone. Radek suddenly shows up and kills the reporter with a gun before getting on a bike. Steve shoots his tires, which makes him crash, but he gets away. He tells her not to trust anyone at the CIA, which means he might be a radical spy. Steve goes to see Ty, and there is a lot of tension between them because they have a past. She tells him that Costus has stopped all CIA work in Greece and will soon hold a press meeting to discuss what he found. Steve told her that he saw Radek and thinks the CIA used him against them. Steve remembers waiting for her to leave with him a few years ago, but Ty turned him down and chose her work instead. This makes her feel bad. She instead says sorry, and the two of them share a moment. When he wakes up later on Ty's couch, she tells him that they were able to find the video's IP address. He returns to the hotel room, where Kate has been thinking about what to do. She tells Steve that she knows he talked to Radek on the phone, and then hurriedly points a gun at him and says he works for Radek. Steve quickly takes the gun away from her, but he gives it back to her with a smile. Afterward, he tells her he talks with Radek, but not about what she thinks, and decide to check out the building that looks like it has been empty for a while. Steve is shocked to see that Patricio is dead and hanging from the roof. He had been beaten up. A large group of armed men walk in. Steve kills the first man, which starts a fierce shootout. Kate gets a bag of explosives and hides under the floor to get away. At the same time, Steve sets off a huge explosion that kills a few guys before he expertly shoots the rest. Kate begs Steve to stay behind, but he won't because he loves her. Steve seems to give up when all of a sudden he throws the bomb bag at Steph, killing all the guys in the explosion. Steve is mad that Patricio is murdered by Radek, and he plans to kill him for real this time. They tell Kate that they will pay the $100 million, and Steve sees this as a chance to get on the radio. When Tim gets to Greece, Ty, Steve, and Kate are soon all in the same room. Then Tim tells Steve that Radek did ask Kate to drop off the money, and that he wants Steve to leave the job. They get Kate ready by giving her a flash drive with 100 million bitcoins. Kate then gets to a place where she finds a phone tucked under a phone box. Then she follows the directions to a bar. As she walks into the back room, and someone grabs her. On the other hand, Steve says he has been following her. He takes the drive, sends Kate off, and then draws his gun, and goes down. Steve sees a laptop on a desk in the basement, which is otherwise empty. Radek shows up on a video call as he connects the flash drive. He doesn't believe the CIA. Steve tells him that he killed Patricio without a good reason. He reveals he will find Radek no matter where he hides. As soon as the door to the basement shuts, Steve is squished under the desk. As soon as he sees the bomb, he quickly moves the table against the wall and hides. Steve is scared before a huge blast tears a hole in the wall, but he makes it through. Radek can hit him with a car and kill him, but Kate pulls up in the AMG, and Steve takes the wheel. They catch Radek quickly. Kate tries to blow the tires up, but she can't. Steve goes off-road, crashes into a wall, and then flips Radek's van over. They almost lose him before he gets away. Steve runs to the car, but Radek is already gone. He screams his name again further on. There is a party meeting in town, and Costus is giving a speech. Steve looks in every building for Radek, until he finds him. Steve grabs a hatchet from one of the cameramen on a tower while Radek lines up his shot. Steve is able to knock down the tower, which makes Radek miss and fall. Steve breaks Steve's hand before he can get his gun. Steve points the gun at him and tells him it's over. He says sorry for not keeping Radek's family safe and shoots him as he goes for his jacket. He was looking for a picture of Steve and his family, it turns out. The police then shoot Steve in the chest, knocking him out. When he wakes up in the hospital, Kate is sitting next to him. She says they found Radek's laptop, but the money wasn't there. It turns out that they don't care about the 100 million, because the CIA secrets have been kept secret. The CIA saved Costus's life, and he now thanks them. Tim thinks that they are now equal, which makes Kate think that Tim has the money. After a few nights, Ty is getting ready to leave town when Steve surprises her in her flat and scares her. He hears vans pulling up outside, and Ty is holding him with a gun. She reveals Radek asked her to be his spy, and that she had no choice but to work with him. Ty gets her bags and goes. On her way, she walks past a group of men who are going to kill Steve. Steve goes inside, grabs a white package, puts it in the oven, and then sneaks out a window. When the guys walk in, one of them hears the oven and opens it, setting off a huge explosion. Steve was getting out when he was thrown into the street right in front of Ty, who was just driving off. Ty starts to speed at him, but Kate fires at her, hitting her and sending her flying. Steve looks deeply at her dead body before Kate comes to get him. The two of them then leave for the CIA offices. Kate thought Tim was dirty. That shocks Tim, and he tells her to pack her things. She thinks she's going to be fired, but he gives her more work and tells her to handle her own cases. Kate tells her no, packs her things, and leaves. After that, we see Steve back at work, happy to be putting bricks. Don't forget to join our magical movie family, and turn on the notification to watch more films like this. Like, subscribe, and share for us to reach more people. Thank you for watching. What do you think about the movie? Welcome to Magician Recaps Explains. Let's start straight away. The film begins with detectives Vic Manning and Sarah Morris arriving at a hotel to catch notorious drug lord Oka T-Joe. T-Joe gets the drop on them and starts to fight Vic before getting away. The detectives chase after T-Joe out of the hotel and into the streets. Morris gets close enough to catch T-Joe, but as they fight for her gun, T-Joe ends up shooting Morris in the abdomen. The crook gets away as Vic rushes to his partner's side to save her, but she immediately dies. 6 months later, we meet Stu, who works at a sporting goods store while taking a side job as an Uber driver. He is forced to give a ride to his obnoxious boss, Richie Sandusky, who runs his father's store and also gives him the unwanted nickname, Stuber. Stu is also investing in opening a spin class gym with his college friend, Becca, with whom he is in love. However, she is dating a superstar basketball player, and Stu is none too happy about that. He also really needs to maintain a rating above 4 stars, or he loses the Uber side job, and typically, his rides do not go over well. Vic has been obsessing over catching T-Joe and avenging Morris. Captain N.G. McHenry tells Vic to let it go now that the case against T-Joe is being bumped up to the feds. Vic later goes to get LASIK eye surgery before meeting with his daughter, Nicole. She invites him to her art gallery later that night, which he promises to show up, even though he can't see anything. Nicole installs the Uber app on his phone to help him out. Vic later gets a call from his informant, Leon, who frantically tells Vic about a heroin drop, with T-Joe happening later that night. Vic jumps at the chance to get in on the case, and he heads to meet with Leon, but because he can't see, he drives all over the place, knocks things over, and finally drives into a construction hole. He then has no choice but to call for an Uber. Stu is that Uber driver, and he goes to pick Vic up and take him to Koreatown to meet with Leon. The two arrive at the warehouse where Leon is, but Vic realizes that he is already dead. He takes Leon's phone, but he unknowingly leaves behind bloody footprints. From what he can see on the phone, Leon's last contact was someone by the name of Amber Titties. Vic forces and insists Stu to keep driving him, making move to their next destination. Before we get on with it, like the video, smash that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell to join our magical movie family. Meanwhile, Stu gets a video call from Becca, who is pissed and drunk after seeing that her boyfriend has nude photos of other girls on his phone. She invites Stu to come over and comfort her, and he promises to be there. After dealing with Vic, Stu brings Vic to a male strip club, and Vic makes Stu go inside with him. They meet Amber, who runs the place, and is aggressive to one of the dancers, Felix, for eating a sandwich when he has to look buff. Vic goes to talk to her about Leon, and she says that he was involved with a dealer named Amo Cortez, Renee Moran. Stu talks to Felix about Becca, revealing that they had sex a while back, but they both act like it was no big deal. Felix encourages him to express his feelings to her. Becca calls Stu again and says that her boyfriend called and sounded and seemed apologetic, so she is close to forgiving him, but still wants Stu to come over. However, Vic is not done with Stu and wants him to drive to Long Beach to find Amo. Stu begrudgingly and unwillingly joins him. Amber can then be seen calling someone to tell them about Stu and Vic. The guys go to a house where Vic enters to interrogate Amo and his buddies. He is enraged to find that they were smuggling drugs inside their dog, and he pulls the guy outside to arrest him. He places him in Stu's car and makes him think Stu is his partner. Vic even gives Stu a small gun to sell it. Amo quickly realizes Stu is just an Uber driver, and he attempts to escape by breaking through the window. Stu tries to stop him and accidentally shoots Amo in the leg. Vic starts to pry info from Amo, learning that a heroin drop is going down that night, but Amo passes out from shock before he can tell Vic where it's happening. Vic orders Stu to take him to a vet that knows him so that they can treat Amo's leg. After Amo wakes up, Vic tries to once again use brute force to get into out of him, but Stu opts for a different option. That's getting into Amo's phone and trying to send messages on Twitter that he wouldn't want his buddies to read. Mostly about being a fan of Ryan Gosling and spreading rumors about his boss wearing diapers. Amo spills that the drop is happening after midnight at a storage yard. Just then, a group of T-Joe's goons enters, and the leader holds Stu at gunpoint. They try to negotiate a swap of Stu for Amo, but Vic calls their bluff and knows they'll just kill all three of them. To get rid of loose ends, Stu faints, and Vic begins to exchange fire with the goons. Amo gets killed before he and Stu take cover. Still being unable to see, Vic is only able to get any shots by hearing wherever Stu throws something. He misses on the leader, but Vic catches him after he steps on a cat's tail, and Vic puts a bullet in his head. Stu pukes and freaks out over all the dead bodies. They then flee the scene while still looking like crap, but Vic sends a text on the leader's phone to who he thinks is T-Joe to make him think that Vic is dead. The text instead goes to McHenry, who is already at Nicole's art gallery. The two make it to the art show, and Vic makes a fool of himself by bumping into things and not even noticing Nicole's art. She meets Stu, and he shares his whole day dealing with her dad. Vic then goes to Nicole and asks her for the keys to their house for his storage unit, which she realizes is the only reason he showed up. She tells him off for being absent in her life and caring more about his job than the people in his own life. Vic leaves her with a gun for protection. Stu and Vic leave, and Vic throws a rock through a nearby shop to bring cops there, but also because he's mad. The guys go to the sporting goods store to get what Vic says is a few guns, but he really just grabs a bunch of stuff off the rack. Stu finally puts his foot down and calls Vic out for how he acts, telling him that he is scared of showing his emotions by hiding behind his masculinity, as well as him being a terrible dad to Nicole. The two then start fighting with items from around the store, like baseball bats and bicycles. They are then caught by Richie, who aims a crossbow at them. He makes fun of Stu again, but Stu then tells Richie off for the kind of person he is, and Stu quits on the spot. As he is leaving, Richie tries to convince him to stay because he considers Stu his best and only friend. Stu tries to say one nice thing to Richie before leaving for good. Stu drives Vic to the storage yard to catch T-Joe. While staking out, Vic calls McHenry for backup. As this happens, Stu calls Becca and comes clean about his feelings for her, but he makes it sound like she put some kind of pressure on him to admit it to himself. Although she is still open to Stu coming over, he feels that they should just not talk to each other at all, since he won't be able to ignore his feelings for her, but he will give her a call when he is ready. McHenry then shows up and reveals herself as a dirty cop to Vic. It turns out she and T-Joe killed Leon and orchestrated the whole thing to get Vic framed for murder and off their tail. She shoots Vic once, but before she can kill him, Stu drives his car into her and slams her against the wall. T-Joe and his goons spot them and begin to shoot and chase after the guys. Stu drives away while Vic regains his sight and is able to shoot at the bad guys. Stu throws a propane tank for Vic to shoot so it can blow up, and it works. Unfortunately, Stu's electric car runs out of battery, and T-Joe catches up and slams his car into theirs, knocking it down a hill, and forces the guys to run. T-Joe finds the two as they run through a factory, and his wild shooting forces the employees out. The guys hide with the employees in a van, where they try to call multiple Ubers to get them out of there, and to also make T-Joe think that it's police backup. But one of the drivers blows the whole thing, and the drivers flee once T-Joe starts shooting again. Vic and T-Joe fight, with Stu failing to take a shot at T-Joe before he knocks them both down. Nicole shows up after getting Vic's location off the Uber app and shoots T-Joe a couple of times before he gets a hold of the gun and attempts to shoot Nicole. While Vic is down, Stu takes the bullet for Nicole, and Vic rages out by trying to strangle T-Joe before Nicole stops him as real cops show up to arrest T-Joe. Stu and Vic both wake up in the hospital. Nicole thanks the two of them for what they did. Stu gets up to leave, but not before Vic gives him a 5-star rating. He thanks Stu for saving Nicole's life, and it brings him to tears. It is now Christmas time. Becca opened the spin class gym on her own, which Stu remains an investor in, and it is a big success. Vic is seen eating in a Chinese restaurant with the dog he saved from Amo's house. He walks it to Nicole's house where she reveals that she and Stu are now dating. Vic is left speechless as he comes in to celebrate with them, as the movie closes on a 5-star wreath, referencing Stu's recent success. That's all for this movie recap. Just like and subscribe for all blockbuster movie recaps. Don't forget to join our magical movie family, and turn on the notification to watch more films like this. Like, subscribe, and share for us to reach more people. Thank you for watching. What do you think about the movie?